don't think. He started living this big, wild life, like the life he'd set out to live could no longer contain him. My mother, Chidizuru Kobayashi, was more of a homebody. If my father's personality was larger than life, hers was small enough to hold in your hand. She is the sweetest person I know, devoted, selfless, cheerful. My father was cut another way. He was the most determined person I ever knew, driven, purposeful, gregarious. I guess it's true when they say opposites attract, until they don't. My parents had been childhood sweethearts back in Tokyo, but my father knew he was meant to live in America. Whatever life there was for him and my mother in Japan, it was not enough, not big enough, not exciting enough, not enough for him. For my mother, it was all she knew, all she ever wanted. But my father wanted something more, something else. He seemed to notice it the moment he set foot on American shores. His first visit to the United States was in 1959 with Japan's national wrestling team. On that tour, he wrestled 14 times in his weight class and won every match. The only time he lost was when he moved up a weight class and was beaten by a guy who later wrestled for the U.S. Olympic team. That strong showing was enough to earn my father a spot on Japan's 1960 Olympic team as an alternate. He traveled with the team to Rome, but he never got to wrestle. He was on the team, but only in this second-string way, and yet to hear him tell the story later, he was just happy for the thrill of the ride. He was all about the thrill, my old man. Always. That was his thing. And in some ways, this particular thrill was a kind of placeholder for the thrills yet to come, because he was counting the days until he could return to the United States. He purchased his first car while in Rome, an Alfa Romeo, which he had shipped to New York. It was one of those impulse moves he liked to make. Looking back, it's like his whole life was a string of impulse moves, one after another. He'd get an idea in his head and push it forward without really thinking it through or talking it over with the other people in his life, like, say, his parents, or his childhood sweetheart, or anyone else who might have been waiting on him back in Japan. He followed the car to New York immediately after the games, telling my mother that he would send for her once he was established. My father's plan after arriving in New York was to go to college on a wrestling scholarship. He had legit scholarship offers from several schools, but he was holding out for Cornell University. His parents ran a handful of tea houses back in Japan, and his dream was to open a restaurant of his own, and he thought an education at Cornell's prestigious School of Hotel Administration would be his foundation. Trouble was, his English was lousy. He knew enough to get by, but not nearly enough to get by Cornell's admissions officers. He wound up sharing a crappy apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan with a young contractor named Seiji Ozawa, a family friend from back home. Yeah, that Seiji Ozawa, who would go on to become one of the most famous conductors in the world, a true artist and visionary. In the early 1960s, though, he was just another Japanese kid like my father, chasing his version of the American dream, making his bones as an apprentice conductor with the New York Philharmonic. Years later, whenever Seiji Ozawa's name would come up, or we'd see a poster for one of his performances with the Boston Symphony or some other renowned orchestra, my father would tell us his music used to drive him crazy. I'm guessing Seiji Ozawa, to someone like my father, was soft. Listen to the music he made, most famously as music director of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and underneath it you can hear the thrill in it, the wild ride, but my father could only hear what was at the surface. He could only hear what he could see. My father was the deep blue of winter, steeled against the cold, the fighting hue of a wrestler. His roommate was more like the pastel blue of springtime, open to the world and the spirit of renewal. My father made his nut driving an ice cream truck in Harlem. Imagine that, a Japanese ice cream man roaming the streets of Harlem. I'm sure it made an odd picture, but this was my father's way. He was most at home when he was out of place, a quality I eventually learned to embrace myself, but only after carrying the weight of feeling like I, too, didn't belong. The first Benihana of Tokyo restaurant was opened in 1963 on West 56th Street in Manhattan. My grandmother came over from Japan to help my father out. Soon, my mother came over as well, and soon after that, they started cranking out kids. Here it starts to get complicated. Weird, too. My family tree's got a whole lot of branches. There's even a whole other tree. Let me walk you through it and you'll see what I mean. My sister Grace came along first in 1966. Then came my brother Kevin in 1967. I wasn't born until 1977, but while my mother was in Miami with my brother and sister, my father was shuttling back.